All right, it is 5:02 p.m. on March 30th, 2022. I'll call the Curriculum Committee of the Board of Education, Willington Board of Education to order. We only have two items on our agenda. One is to review ELA set number 3, and the other item is to talk about kind of how to communicate that through the curriculum through our website. Here's the other end. So, Aaron, do you want to start off with kind of an overview real quick of ELA set 3? Does that make sense?
Yeah, let me pull that up. So,
and I can share if there's a certain one you want me to share.
All right. Sorry, I'm navigating through all my tabs. All right, winter, spring. So I believe this was the first set, 2, 4, 6, 8. Yep. So this is the first set that you'll see. There were a few less because the middle school units had only one left. So there's one per grade in the middle school, but there's still the reading and writing paired units from kindergarten through 4th grade. And this set is this. So set 3 is the final set you guys are receiving, and will be the set that happens basically from January to March, April. So that's the time period that these units would also be taking place. But generally speaking, and that would be all I would say for an overview for set 3.
Okay, and same thing goes, all the phonics stuff that goes along with these will be at a different time. So just a reminder to the committee members about that. Any questions? Do you want me to pull up any of the specific individual units? Any general feedback? How would you like to start there, Laura, Ann, and Tracy?
Yeah, I would defer to the group that reviewed them to if you had any specific input or questions on a particular unit, or any general questions, insights, feedback.
I had a question on either the kindergarten or 1st grade, but I can't check it right now. Can I ask you in a couple minutes? It was a term I hadn't heard before.
Sure.
But I put it in my notes until I stopped driving. I can't look.
Yep.
Tracy,
did anyone else?
Reading or writing, Tracy? Was it in reading or writing?
I can't remember. I think it was reading, but I'm not sure. And I wrote down the page and everything. So just give me a few minutes, and I'll be in my driveway.
No problem. Laura or Ann?
You're muted, Ann.
Ann, you're muted.
I'm just trying to pull it up to refresh, to look at it.
So I have it up here, but I will be very honest. I started looking at it with 8th grade, and then life interfered with all sorts of stuff. So I have not had a chance to look at much more than 8th grade. I guess what my question for you is, because I know that the way it's laid out is going to be very similar to what we've already seen. And I know that the concerns that have been voiced and that will continue to be voiced have to do with the resources that are in these units. And I'm wondering, are there some that you have noticed as you're going through that you think might be ones that are targeted as being inappropriate for students at certain grade levels, and maybe we should look at those units and think about why they're appropriate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually, I think that's a great suggestion. I would have to set 3. I think I actually did take notes on that. Let me see if I can pull my notes up.
This is the 8th grade reading. I mean, if you wanted to
Yep.
see supplemental texts that are right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that,
sorry, I saw Hidden Figures. I was like, oh, yes.
Mhm. Yeah. So I would say that one definitely is one of the units that I would just from, you can see from the titles that could be flagged. Which is why you can see that lesson learned, right? So you can see why I put that in parentheses, just to be specific about what is that about. That particular video is the difference between implicit bias and racism. And it really does, with the point of that video really saying we overuse the term racism, and really that what a lot of people refer to are the bias. And then it talks kind of about examining your own biases. But it's a very short video. But they do this particular unit, the kids do look at their own biases that's built into the unit, where they think about their own experiences, their own exposures, and what kind of biases they may hold, and not necessarily about race. It's really just their biases in general and how they would impact how they view another situation based on their bias.
Does that topic come up in social studies at all, or aren't they there yet with this social studies
So it will.
standards? Yeah.
And I do know that, I mean, Miss Teresa Smith at middle school, she's awesome. So I know that she does, they do have some conversations, but it is most definitely built into the framework as well.
Mm-hmm.
And in our Portrait of the Graduate, really understanding diversity and differences of perspectives. The other resource in this one that I would say could, and it's not for the same reason, would be the From Hatch to Table. It's a documentary on chickens, and it's from hatch to table. So just knowing that, I don't, if that would video, so it does go through the process of the chickens, which is how it gets to table is obviously killed. That's the only other in terms of reviewing though, in terms of these. And then the last one, the last book, Imprisoned, The Betrayal of Japanese Americans, obviously by the title could be flagged as well. And the purpose of a lot of the work they do in that book, and you can see it in the structured read, is looking at author bias, that in looking at how the author is writing and so they look at connotative language. And so they really are, it's purposefully there because they do examine author bias, and they talk about it, and they talk about the different perspectives of that World War II in terms and it's actually a really rich book. And so there is different perspectives, but it also is very much looking at bias through that lens. As I'm looking at these, I think those would be the three that I flagged for this unit.
As far as From Hatch to Table, I understand you're flagging that. Having taught 7th grade science in this community, many of the students have chickens 4-H, and they have not just dairy, they have, I want to say meat cattle, but that's not the term.
Fossils.
Excuse
We
me.
know what you mean by that.
Like, it was something that struck me when I moved here, is that kids here are closer to the land and understanding that farm to table. And so I don't see that being an issue. I think the issues, although, I mean, certainly seems like one of the topics lately is to not have anything that is disturbing to children. But anyway, I think, okay, I don't know what I think. I'm just thinking about this.
Yeah, and so I did have a conversation outside with a board member to walk them through different concerns, and I do think that the understanding of why it's in there was really helpful.
Yeah.
So, because you're right, there is like, well, if we expose them to this, why are we exposing them to it? And so I think that just being very clear on the why and being able to express the why, and put the resource in context is really important.
I agree.
Yep. The other, the reason I asked about social studies and the standards for social studies is that is another good rationale. It says right here that this grade should be talking about, diversity and I mean, it fits in with history, even though I never knew about the Japanese internment until I read that big peace book, and they have a nice, story. That's when I learned it, when I was reading it with a group of children. So I think it's important that we do expose them to the different stages of our history, and literature is a great way to do it.
Yeah, one of the teachers actually put it very well, and I building off what you said, Anne, is who was it? Actually, it was Amy Redding, our media library person. She said, exposing children through some tough concepts and events, literature is a great way to expose and get them to experience it a different way, very safely, right? So it's, you can close it if it's really upsetting. It can be closed. You can move on. You can discuss it.
Skip pages.
Yeah.
And children who are uncomfortable are never forced to sit in a classroom where they're uncomfortable. That does not happen. So so a lot of times we're speaking about maybe a child who might be uncomfortable. We're thinking maybe one or two kids in a class who might be uncomfortable. That's almost, and that's a special, that's where the teacher will differentiate.
I think that's just such a good point. And I remember when my first year teaching, I taught 6th grade reading and social studies, and we read The Bridge to Terabithia. And I had a parent who was concerned about that. And that was my point, was this is a difficult topic. I actually had another student in that class who had lost a sibling that year, in a different class. But that idea of exploring some of these difficult topics in a safe place with somebody to help guide you through it, and to be able to talk about it again, that safe place. And as Kristen said, being able to step back from it if needed. I think that's just really, really important for kids to have these experiences before they actually experience it in a personal way.
It also teaches them empathy. They're stepping into the character's role, and they're kind of feeling what that character is feeling, which, teaches them empathy.
Yeah, the other conversation that I had that I think this is also very relevant is that sometimes we have to put those difficult things in to investigate them. So, for instance, bias. We have to have bias in a text if we want to investigate the bias.
Right.
Or, power dynamics. Power dynamics are in middle school is really intertwined. So investigating you have to have the power dynamics in there to be able to investigate them. So, sometimes it's very purposeful as to why there's a resource that may have bias or, meanness, so to speak, which can portray the power. But the conversation, again, that's where the context, that's where it's like understanding what the kids do with this is why that's so important. That it's purposefully, it's intentional, and it's really around building that critical thinking and learning and invest, but it's purposeful. And so, but the purpose varies depending on the text and content.
And what skills the kids are learning. If it's compare and contrast or critical thinking or.
So I'm going to, Tracy, you're on now. Did you want to go from 8th grade to kindergarten?
Oh, yeah. And mine's just a simple vocabulary word that I'm just not familiar with. It's in the kindergarten writing on page 9. how do I make my writing better after my initial ideas are down? And it talks about look for students' use of flaps in revision. There, yeah. Next row down, last column, student writing, drawing.
Do you want me to
Page
explain that?
9.
Do you want me to
There you go.
explain
It's,
that?
yeah, your pointer's right on it there.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at my own. That's
Go
fine.
ahead, Kristen.
Flaps are, it's just where you would take a piece of paper and you cut it, like you cut like a rectangular piece of paper, and then to add more detail, then you just add that and you tape it on.
That's what I guessed, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to know. And that
Yeah.
would be one that I would want, that would be something maybe to put in a, I mean, it's, I've only seen it this once so far, but it may appear in other ones
Mhm.
that might need to go in the glossary.
Yep. That's a good question.
It's a homemade sticky note.
And that's what I figured, but just want to verify.
Any other items that you, that would jump out at you? Aaron, you might have to spend some time just talking about the resources in the 8th grade unit. And like Tracy said, connect them to social studies, connect them to, the topics and what the actual learning is, what the theme is. So there's an
Mhm.
understanding of why those are there.
And just
Yeah.
a question about common practice in other, I've never worked on a curriculum and committee in this depth before, as far as all these grades and all these subjects at the same time, is it common practice for anyone who is reviewing it on a Board of Ed to have vetted every single resource? I mean, we don't even have access to some of these resources, but also time, the amount of time invested in just reading the 14 in each set is a huge time commitment as a volunteer. I mean, I take it on, I don't mind it, I actually enjoy reading it, but to also now read the novels that go along with that.
No, that's not the expectation, Tracy. I think what's important is that you're going through and that you understand kind of the flow, that you can make connections with what's in the content and the themes. And I think, the other important thing to realize is not every resource that we have in the public school system, I don't care if it's Willington or Hartford or New London, wherever it is not in a curriculum. A teacher could pull a resource tonight, they could find something that's connected to their students learning tomorrow, and they'll bring that resource in. It's not going to be in this document. And so this is just a bunch of resources that can be used and that we want staff to use. But like Aaron has said in the past, and Kristen has said in the past, if someone finds something better, and they're sharing that, as long as they're following the curriculum, we may be inserting others, or they may use it and it might never be inserted. There are certain things when we start talking about student choice and student interest that really plays to a class. I mean, sometimes you have a group of students that's really interested in politics or really interested in rocks. You're going to try and pull as many resources to engage kids as you can. And the idea is that not every resource is in this curriculum. You're going to read as much as you can and make sure you can see the flow, that you can see that, it makes sense, that there's no blatant errors as far as like, wow, that chart was way off, or, a resource was just seemed like it was too much. If it was, you read a title, pulled a title and you're like, I just want to see what that is. You're not expected to see every one of those things. And I think that's what Michelle said at the end of the meeting as well.
Yeah, I would also add on to that typically also the major curricular resources we use for this, in this instance, it's Teachers College workshop units. That's a national program that's been around for a decade. So most their stuff has been vetted by their people. So that's first. And second of all, another really quick resource, so that if you are wondering, like, let's say for instance, any of you see a title and you're like, I don't have the time to read this whole book, but I kind of want to check out the gist of it and or what people think. Common Sense Media is a pretty good resource for that. So just plugging in that title to the website Common Sense Media, it'll tell you what ages is recommended. There's parents weigh in on that site. Experts look at it through this specific lens. Is it appropriate? It talks about any kind of sensitive topic that may be in there. But it's a great resource if you kind of want like a Cliff Notes version.
That's good. The other thing I would say is that I think the best evaluators of the books would be the teachers. They see, you know, they know how well it teaches the skill, how well it teaches whatever they're trying to do, and as well as how the children react. So I think as part of the curriculum being fluid and being ongoing, maybe if they're comfortable going, you know, reacting and sharing what they find about each of the resources. And as Phil said, if there's something that they found that accomplished the goal really well, you know, that might also be included.
Yeah, and we are working with the teachers. So if they are pulling and suggesting new mentor texts, they do share those with Kristen and I prior so that we can review and make sure that they align with the content of the unit, but also appropriateness. But typically teachers, like you said, are spot on with that. It's more just, do they align with all the content needed? But they do run those by us, and we will, if we've had a couple already that we've infused into the mentor text list based on teacher recommendation.
I think one of the things that is really important, and this message might be really important from the 3 board members here, is that the Willington Public Schools staff, I don't care what your position is, puts faith in you to create policies that are fair and help drive our school district forward, right? You're policy setters, and that's a two-way street. So the other part of that is that as board members, you have to have faith and trust in the professionals and the folks that have been through school and done the workshop and done the work and gotten the feedback. And that goes well beyond what Erin's saying about a program being vetted. TC has obviously been vetted by a lot of districts, a lot of places, and by them. But, you know, I think the big message from you is, you know, that you have to trust your professionals, that the things that we're putting forward, if a teacher sees something that they question, they're not just going to go and do it. They're going to go and talk to an administrator. They're going to talk to Erin. They're going to talk to Chris and say, you know, and your sample a couple of minutes ago, Laura, is perfect. At the middle school, that might fly. In the elementary school, if there was a student, you know, who's, we know, you know, had lost a sibling or something, and there's a book that they're going to be coming up that's going to be talking about that, our professionals are thoughtful. They're going to change resources. They're going to make adjustments to meet the needs of kids where they are. So that trust thing to me has got to be a big message in this. And that's what I think Michelle's point was too, along the lines of, you're not expected to read every single word and check every single resource, right? You're expected to review it as best you can and trust the professionals that have put it in front of you. And that's what we're asking you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Did very well.
And I kind of look at the scope and sequence to kind of see how it flows from grade to grade and subject to subject, and how that happens.
And I keep those questions that you sent out to the and with the first unit, which I mentioned, I think at the last meeting, you know, does it meet our board goals, and does it meet portrait of graduate goals and things like that? That's what I'm looking through it. I guess I was looking, when I read the curriculums, I'm reading them through an educational lens and looking at the content as far as does it flow and all of that, you know, fit those questions rather than taking it apart and looking at individual pieces, which was another point I think was made at that meeting, was to not pull it out of context and pick apart one piece, look at the whole picture of that, the intent of that unit or that lesson.
I agree with what Tracy's saying, and I was just a little concerned that there was a misinterpretation about that we're trying to teach critical race theory through the units, and that's the whole thing, like out of context. If you do take certain resources and you just focus on a couple, then you can make you can, I guess you could state that claim, and if you take just a couple pieces, but if you look at the curriculum and all the resources as a whole, and you're part of the process, and you understand why all these pieces fit together, and if you also know, like, what are the things that we've revised and the things that we've taken some things out as well, that are, that perpetuate stereotypes. So it's an inclusive curriculum, and I just want to make sure that that's made clear. We're not pushing an agenda. It's not a political agenda. We're making sure that all of our students are included, and that all of our students are able to see things and be exposed to things that they might not be able to in the community that they're in. And that's it.
Mhm.
Any other feedback about any of the units? Anything you want me to pull up on screen that would be helpful?
I don't know, I just found it difficult during the meeting. This isn't related to this, but just to the question there, when some of the questions came up, it was really hard to think back to what that particular piece was, especially since I had two sets in my head, set 1 and 2, to figure out what they were talking about in some of the questions. And I almost said to myself, did they read a different thing than I did? Because I couldn't remember those particular pieces that were some of them that were being asked about. So I don't know how we deal with that when we go to the full board and we're trying to have a meeting, because I don't want to print out 200 pages. So maybe when the board comes, when other members come, if they are specific about, what part they're talking about,
Well, I think, Tracy, one of the things that I will do, and I'm thankful for Erin being willing to do this, because it can be a lot of work and time that she doesn't have necessarily. But one of the things that I think is important is the ability to clarify and have those conversations. So when this set goes out to the full board, I think the statement will be, if you need a printed copy, you can contact Brenda. But part 2 of that is, if you see something in here that you have a question about, it's really hard for us to pull up and answer right then and there on page 352, paragraph 1, this resource, and then we've got to find it and pull it up. I'd rather have board members individually contacting Erin and saying, can you please be prepared to speak to this resource that night? That is a better use of the board time. And that might be my fault as far as setting it up, as far as we've never done this before, right?
No.
Trying to ask the questions, and when Erin and Kristen give us 250 pages in one go around, it's a lot. And so we want to make sure that again, other board members have to trust you, because you are the curriculum committee, but it's also fair for them to be able to ask questions. And the more of those questions we can get in advance, it doesn't who likes to be put on the spot? That's really hard sometimes to be able to pull those things, especially when it's rapid fire. If there's certain things that we can address publicly that a board member has questions about, I think that's a good thing to do. And we can do that when we send out the email to say, if you have questions, let us know. I can have them sent to me. And if Erin needs to respond, she can, or if it's something we can just respond to at the board meeting, we will.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful, just because I did feel like I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but I felt like I was on the spot, like, oh my goodness, what did I miss? But I read it really, and then I couldn't find the pieces to even feel like I could answer the question in an educated way.
Mhm. I mean, and to add to that, again, I had a conversation this past week, and I actually I really enjoyed it. It was a nice back and forth. So I'm completely willing, and I do think to have individual conversations too, if there's more clarification than just a question that we want to bring to the public in the board meeting. I do think I think that conversation was helpful for both of us. So I would really encourage, like, any kind of clarity, or any board member who wants to kind of talk through different pieces, to reach out to me also.
I really like the idea of what Phil was saying for board members to actually kind of give a heads up on certain things. I'm wondering also, like at the last meeting, we had given them the first and then we gave them the second before the board meeting, and it was just a lot and hard for us to navigate, as Tracy was saying. I know we want to get these approved and out there, but I'm thinking it may be better that there's only one each month before a board meeting to review. And then like, so this third set, wait till like right after the board meeting to send out. So then we discuss it the next month and keep it, because just one set is a huge amount. And that way we're also focused on that one set in the board meeting. We can be reviewing, I guess, a little bit faster, but maybe at the board meeting for everybody, just the one set. I don't know. I'm thinking that might help.
Aaron, are you going to be able to, will we stay on track if we do that? Because at some point, Laura, we overlap, right? So when we're doing, she's doing ELA right now. When she starts doing social studies and math and PE at the same time, I don't know if that ever exists, Aaron, but is there a time that will overlap?
It could. But I do think, I mean, throwing it out there as a question, I guess more so, but I would think that it's less confusing when you have two different subjects versus two sets on the same subject. I only know that because when questions were being asked, remember I was writing set 3 and questions were being asked about set 1. So I hear you, because I was like, oh no, which one was that?
Where was that?
Yeah, so I wonder if because the overlap would not happen with ELA if we do that moving forward, because this is the last set for workshop units. But there is going to be overlap as we bring phonics forward, because phonics and math are going to happen simultaneously. So there will be some overlap, but they'll be different subjects.
Are they as long? These are really long. Yeah, I don't think they're as long, right?
Nope. These will likely be the longest ones because of the structured reads specifically, I think. But don't quote me on that.
More cut and dry. There's not as many resources, and there's not as many things to really look deeply into as we were really, I mean, one unit's, could be the long O sound, and then another unit is, digraphs, and, I mean, I think it's easier to kind of just look through those a little more quickly than it is for the ELA unit. So there might be as many pages, but not as heavy content. If that makes sense.
Maybe ELA set 2 in April. And I mean, even if you're okay with sending it, we can send it and say ELA set number 3 will be, up for discussion at the May meeting. I mean, that's going to give them 6 weeks to look at it.
Kristen, will the phonics be embedded in the ELA when we see it, or will it kind of be standalone? And then it will then, at some point, then it would be embedded with the rest of the ELA, or will it always stand alone?
It is taught at a separate time. So it is like it's separate, and the resources are, even though we're finding connections, and well, the K-2, it's part of the work, it's teachers college. So they're already automatic connections. And 3 through 8, at the moment, we're bringing in the structured reads that are connected with the word study. So there will be connections, but I don't know if embedded is maybe a strong word, but there will definitely be connections.
Okay, I'm just thinking that when people are looking it over, it might be simpler if it's a standalone, and then later embed it. Whereas
it's a standalone.
Then we'll be seeing, set 3 and set 2 all over again, but this time it'll have phonics in it. So
yes.
That was
confused.
Phil, is it, I don't know, because I know this isn't technically the agenda item, but can we share the scope and sequence and draft right now with them? Because I think that might visually, and I know Anne, I think, was waiting for something like that too.
Are you talking about with this group?
Yes.
Is ELA, you mean to show where ELA set 3 is part of it?
Yeah, we can do that. Yep, so that will show it in context.
That puts it on the agenda. That puts it on the agenda.
Thank you, Anne. Aaron, are you gonna share that?
Sorry, I muted because my dog was starting to make noise. Yes, I'll pull it up. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me share screen. Can I share screen? Is it gonna let me? Yep. All right, so can you see?
Yes.
All right, so you could, so this, and just to give you an idea, because you were talking about phonics, so green is the phonics, you'll see that's empty, but those will be filled in. Blue is the writing unit and yellow is the reading unit for each grade. And then this is for next year. So these are the blocks of time the units are taught. Just wanted to share that. And then so you can see set 3 is this time period right here.
And this is really important because it will help us move into our next conversation in a couple of minutes about what's on the website. Remember this big picture here, because you'll see what I'm doing.
Are those, and those titles are the teacher college titles, how-to books?
Correct.
That's, okay. And that
Yep, and
brings
you will notice right here that kindergarten, or right, I should say right. Oh yeah, you do see my screen.
Yeah.
Right here, the reading unit is empty for this set. That is because the book was not aligned with the science of reading. So in a good majority of it. So we took the reading book out and we're going to do a heavier phonics and we'll put together a heavier phonics, and we're going to put together something for reading that will be including the how-to books. It'll likely be research for the how-to books. But that right there will be filled in predominantly with those two things. It just, we had to get rid of the book.
So I have a question. The kindergarten reading curriculum that you sent us, right, for the third set, you sent it to us and it has your superpowers as the primary. So
sorry, right, this is the fourth set. I'm lying. This is the fourth set. This is the third set.
Superpowers. Okay. So it's the third set. Okay. All right.
I just finished. Sorry, I just finished this set. That's what this is why I get confused, because I'm on a set, but you forget you guys are one set behind me. Right. Sorry. This is your set you're looking at.
That's
so
good.
it's the next set that'll be missing kindergarten.
Gotcha.
But just wanted to share that with you. And is that what you were kind of envisioning too? When
yes.
You kept, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And then the middle school is just down a little farther. You said they have different blocks because they have 5. And theirs is more word work, morphology. They're green, not so much phonics. Are you guys ready for me to stop?
That's good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Should we move on? Are you good? Are you okay with moving those towards the board, the set number 3?
One question, is that ready for the rest of the board yet, Erin, or not
The
quite?
scope and sequence, it's still in draft. I mean, yeah, because we don't have the phonics in there. I'm trying to figure out that block for K.
Okay, so you're
yeah.
not ready to share that yet? Okay.
Nope. I just know that you've been waiting patiently for
I
that.
know. I so appreciate that. Yes.
You got to have some perk for being on the committee, right?
Yeah.
I saw something just a second ago, and then I moved to kindergarten. There was one writing curriculum and it just said nonfiction text. It had a text and then it said nonfiction text. Here it is. 2nd grade writing, the mentor text for the writing unit, extreme sports, and then nonfiction text. I'm wondering what that is. It says example books by Gail Gibbons or Seymour Simon. Ooh, those are wonderful. I know those.
I love
Oh,
Gail
yeah.
So it's just a
Gibson.
variety, you just didn't put in the titles.
Yep. So it was it's teacher choice depending on the interests of their students that year and or teachers' interests. So I, instead of listing all of them, because actually what happened the first time around, just FYI, is I listed optional texts and the teachers thought they needed all of them. So this I think was an easier way to get at pick one or pick a few within these authors.
I think if you just added maybe before that, teacher's choice nonfiction texts, you know, books by so-and-so, just, I think that would make it clear that what that is and that there's just so many choices.
Yep. All right. So what I did is actually, I have the one I'm editing in front of me. I just wrote in the parentheses, teacher choice on books by Gail Gibbons or Seymour Simon.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay, I'm ready to move on then. Sorry.
Mhm.
Tracy and Ann, you good?
Good to go.
Just one quick question, and hopefully it'll be a quick answer.
Mhm.
Is there any benefit to pointing out what is new or what is been part of the curriculum and is connected to the science of reading or connected to Teachers College in any presentation to the board? I don't know how what that would look like, but just some of the questions or comments that have been made. Just wondering. It's a wondering.
So I'll answer based on my conversation this past week is I don't know that I really think it was the context. So I don't know that it mattered if it was in, actually I know because it was specifically stated that this particular person didn't care if it has been in there. It was, what is it about and why is it in there? So it really was more around the conversation and giving it context than if it's been there or not. So we could certainly highlight it and maybe help other people, but I know that one of the I know a lot of the questions came from a few different people and the context really is going to carry more, I think.
Okay, that's fine. Then that was just a wondering. Thank you.
Aaron, I would say if it is a connection, sorry, if that was Kristen speaking, but Aaron, the connection to away from TC because it's not science of reading though, I do think that's important to share. Like, for if you took out something,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
that
for
kindergarten
sure.
example is a really good one to share to say, we're not doing this because, it doesn't align with science of reading and, we know it doesn't. And so we're inserting this instead.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Those are-
for that. Yes.
Go ahead, Kristen.
And there was a question about just as far as concern about performance. And that's, we're working to improve our performance the letters training is a big investment and a big piece of what we're doing. And that training is infused into what we've been doing. So while I think that was one thing that someone was concerned about saying, well, if you're doing the same thing that you've always done, are you going to be able to get better results? And we're not. We're actually keeping that, the Teachers College pieces that have been working that we see are going, or that have really made an impact on our kids positively, and then are adding the things that we're noticing that we could do better at. And that would be what's coming from the letters training and the science of reading pieces. And that's a lot. It's not just a little tweak. This is it's a lot. And they'll see in the phonics especially.
Yeah, will those show up in the phonics?
Yes.
The letters and the science of reading. Okay,
Yes.
that's what the phonics is. Okay.
But it's also in the reading and writing units too, as far as the structured reads and the language focus. And those are new. We've not done those before. And those are big pieces.
Yeah. And while we are, these shifts are visual in the curriculum, the meat and potatoes of this work is, and the real impact is the fact that through letters and the professional development that we're really building the capacity of teachers, where the power, that's where the shift and the change happens.
Yeah. And the teachers are very invested. It's been going incredibly well. So we have a lot of very positive lot of great things ahead.
Mhm.
Those would be great things to share with the rest of the board, especially how it connects to achievement, improving.
Yeah.
I think when you present phonics, that whole phonics section, I think you're gonna have to highlight that big time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And having a little patience
Yeah.
go a long way for everyone,
Mhm.
because it can't happen. I mean, you're writing this can't happen overnight, and its results can't happen overnight. I mean, it may actually in a year, you might see quite a bit once you've gone through the whole curriculum once, but it's not going to happen by the end of the year.
You're on a 5-year process. You're on a 3-year curriculum writing process, but you're on a 5-year, what we'll call a change in scores process. If that's what we're talking about. It's one measure, but it is you don't do that in 1 year.
Mm. So when are we going to learn about Portrait of a Graduate?
Next meeting.
Oh, yay, okay. No,
We just-
I want to see how this fits into that. So I need to
It's-
learn about that too.
It's going to be
Okay.
raw, but we just shared with the staff today. They had the opportunity to come and provide feedback before it goes to the board. It's really general so far, but it's we're ready to show some stuff. So it's good.
Thank you. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, let's
I
move
will-
on to the website review. This is Aaron and I had a pretty lengthy conversation about this. Next item on our agenda there is just talking about how to publish, and we have curriculum on our website now. It's on our website. Some people have said, well, what's there? It's there. There's information there. I will say we're one of very few that has the curriculum on the website. I'm going to show you, Aaron and I went through a bunch of different districts just to look at samples. We didn't, we used some around us. We looked at bigger districts. We looked at smaller districts. And it turns out, I think we have more than most people have on their website. I almost think we actually have too much, and that it gets to be confusing. Similar to Tracy just saying, what in the world are flaps today? A parent is going to say the same thing when they look at a curriculum document. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you some samples of what's out there to give you a sense. And I'm just going to make sure I can see you all here. So this is Mansfield's. Mansfield doesn't have the teacher curriculum is not online. They do a grade by grade, and this happens to be the middle school. They just have a guide to their programs, and it's this one happens to be outdated. They have more than this. It's not online, because when you make changes or they make adjustments, you don't want to have it. You want to update the website. So they literally have a general hey, what's 5th grade? And there it is. That's all it is. It is a paragraph, and it's, I'm sure it's connected to standards, but it's not listing standard numbers. It's just text. So it gives you an information, and it's not real important that you're reading each one of these. It's just, I'm showing you for layout purposes.
Mhm.
This is just what Mansfield chose to do. 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So, you can see, and they added a little bit more in here, but overall, it's just a paragraph for each. I couldn't find any more, and I'll scroll just so you can see. There's other content areas are in there, but I couldn't find the specific type of documents like that you're seeing from Chris and Aaron right now. All right, Columbia has something different. So this is their math. So they have, and again, I'm trying to show you some feeders. So Columbia has, I pulled up 3. Oh, get out of there. So they did this. This is what they have on it. And here's your scope and sequence,
Yep.
right? So they
Mhm.
just kind of said, look, we want to show you some general stuff. Does this tell a teacher what to do? Absolutely not. Does it tell a family what you're working on? Sure. Here's the concepts that we're working on right there. And it is my opinion, that is really what a parent needs. They're not going to dig into a curriculum. They want to know, okay, this month, Johnny's working on fluently adding and subtracting within 1,000, right? So
report card indicators that we put.
Don't steal my thunder there, Kristen Stevens. It's the last
Sorry.
one. All right. So here's a scope and sequence for their ELA. And grade 5 happens to be wit and wisdom, whatever that is. And they've got reading goals in there, writing goals. So what are you working on? They've got the content standards, which again, this means nothing to parents along the side, right?
But
The
in
only-
terms of accountability, it's good to list the standards there.
Sure it is, but if
Or-
it's not tied and there's the actual standards not spelled out for a parent, it means nothing, right? So they actually, and this is what I'm clicking these and that's what's pulling up. So out of Columbia, they basically have this curriculum overview. Here it is. And then they did the standards up for the math standards here. So if you click that, there's Common
Right.
Core, right? So they're giving you the information really general. What is my child going to learn at this grade level? All right, so I'm going to keep going here. Holland doesn't have their curriculum online. They have a K-5 parent curriculum guide that I found. Same exact approach. What are the practices? And then what are you working on? And Kristen, doesn't this look like the same thing? Report card standards. It's just a heck of a lot prettier. Kindergarten math, critical areas, counting and cardinality. What do you have to do? Base 10, what do you have to do? This goes all the way through. This is what Holland has. And so years ago when Barry Wallet was saying, we need to talk about curriculum at curriculum night, this to me is what he meant and what a parent needed to see. We were not talking about opening Aaron Conley's documents and sharing a full teacher's unit, because that to me is what the curriculum is. I'm not sure that's what a parent wants to see. This to me is what a parent wants to see. Maybe a little bit more detailed than this, and I'll give you the example in a minute. But you can see what they're learning in grade 2, right? ELA, same type of thing. They actually have less. Math has more. So they have the benchmark assessment system. They have some, RAS letters here, which, foundations. Is a program. This, to me, their ELA program has even less curriculum on the website compared to math. All right. Go to West Hartford. Right. West Hartford's got some bucks. They've got some money. They've got a lot of people. They've just got it. Here's your K-5 curriculum overview, grade 2. Let's click grade 2. There's the introduction. What's your child going to learn? Guess what? It's the same exact layout. Same thing as Collins, basically, right? It doesn't say how you're teaching this, which is what is in our curriculum. It just says that they're going to apply phonics, right? And so what is my child going to learn under these standards? Reading, language, speaking, listening, and writing. Not even a scope and sequence. Just for informational writing, you're going to learn a how-to guide for nonfiction, right? So I guess my point is this. I'm not so convinced, and I'm obviously this is being recorded. I'm comfortable saying this publicly, and I'll say the same message to the board. I'm not so convinced that what we need to be putting on our website or printing a guide for the public library is our teachers' curriculum guides. What you just saw is a district document. It can be reviewed in my office, but I'm not so sure it needs to be on our website. What I will show you is, do you need to see any of those other ones? Or I hate having a million tabs open. Can I close all these other things?
Yep.
Let me close these real quick, because I'll open some more. So this is our website. So if we go to, let me just go home. If I go to this, and I go to, where is it? Maybe it's on the district site. Is that where it is, Aaron?
I'm pretty sure.
There it is. It's on the district site. So when you go, there's a curriculum tab, right? So if you
Mhm.
want to go center school, language arts, I'm going to click grade 2. Remember, we just saw grade 2 overview. Look at all these documents. Is this going to mean anything? This is what's on there now. I'm not so sure. This is what we need to be posting. This is the general documents that existed that didn't, they still don't tell a teacher how to, go through the programs of what we're doing now. They're really general. Some of the content vocabulary is there, and this is an older document. But is this really what we're looking to put on there? I'm not so sure it is.
So would you open one of them just to see what's in there?
Oh, sorry, you can't see what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
Hold
we
on.
just see the listing of
List of the-
I did. Give me a
Maybe-
second. Stop share. Let me share again because sorry, when I changed programs, I thought it was showing you. Give me 1 second. No, I want to share this. Share
Well,
screen.
I can tell you how old the documents are.
Oh, yes, you can.
Did you work on it, Laura?
If you look at grade 7, those are mine. And I
Right.
left Willington in 2014.
And again, they're general documents for a general overview,
Yeah.
but this is not a full curriculum. And to create a document like this, I just, you can see this now, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
I mean, it's got the standards on it, what the grade level expectation is. I'm not so sure this is meaningful. For a teacher, it's not meaningful for Kristen and Aaron to rewrite, to create something like this. It's not meaningful for a parent, right? This right here, elements of fables and folktales, is just general. Well, if Aaron and Kristen were going to write this piece of the curriculum, they would put all sorts of things in there about elements and fables and folktales, right? But does this to me is not what a parent wants to see. What I believe a parent wants to see, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm going to go back to this. So now I'm back at the website. Maybe they want to see some pacing, but the bigger thing is this link. When I was principal at Center, the teachers, we went through a ton of work to create expectations for every single trimester, so parents knew exactly what their kids were working on, and it was tied directly to the report card. So if I go to, again, let's go back to grade 2. Grade 2, trimester 1, language arts expectations. Guess what? There's the standard, right? Reads literature. So here's the what they're working on, and it's tied directly to standards. Speaking, listening, this is what they're working on. I mean, they're pretty thorough, and these were tied to, let me pull up another one too. This is the common, I think it's this one. This one I like better because this is what's now directly aligned with the report card too. So our report card needs to be revamped. So don't think that this is like what it should be. But here's the, part of the standards, the overall arching. There's what they're doing and what it means. Again, I think we need to redefine, and maybe with some parent input, like what do you really want to see? Because we don't have a webmaster, right? We don't have somebody that's going to control this all the time with new updates putting up on the curriculum on the website. We did find one. And Aaron, where was the one? Where was the town that did have everything up and it was all in Google? Do you remember?
Is it New Britain?
Might have been New Britain. I can't remember. But they had everything up there, and so when you edited something, it was probably you wouldn't have to change it because the link was live on the website. But again, I just think we need to go back to and think about, that maybe a little bit prettier than what we currently have. But that whole kind of Mansfield picture, theirs wasn't as pretty, the middle school model one. But like Tollins, I like Tollins' picture, and it's directly tied to standards. I think the change in Tollins I would make is, if we're on trimesters, identify what your child's going to learn by trimester. In trimester 1 and ELA, here are the standards we're going to do, and make it so it's readable. Some of the standards are written like blah, blah, blah. Let's clarify what it really means. And that's what we did in the report card expectations. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not, I think I wanted to hear your opinions on it, and what you think we could do for future for putting up there.
Yeah, as a grandparent with kids in the school, I think I would like to go there to find out what they're supposed, here I go with my scope and sequence again, but what they're learning at times and how could I help them? Now, if I see adding and subtracting numbers to 10, it's really clear what I have to do. So even little bullets of, breaking it down to the skill that will be taught. And Phil, I think it's well taken to do it by time too, so that I would know what I can do to help them to, or if they're falling behind, how I could help. To me, that would be the reason a parent would want to go there. Or, if you're taking a family vacation, if you're studying this, maybe you want to go, to Washington, or, those kind of things, just to kind of, that's to me why I don't think we need to see every single teacher's lesson at all, or books that they're reading or anything like, but I like that bulleted approach, the standard, and then maybe some bullets under it.
This is another sample that's in there, Anne, is they have the scope and sequence. And this is by trimester. So it just tells you, how long they're on, what standards they're working on. Like, I'm not so sure the essential questions in my mind really matter to a parent. They don't need the information on the assessments. If I was going to take this document as a parent and I wanted to know, it's really page 1. What are you working on? What are these? Because the standards are in there. And then what are some of the things you're doing? You're working on main idea and using evidence,
So it's kind of the skills and the topics. When you get into
Exactly.
science and social studies, topics are really, tell you what's going on.
So I definitely agree with that. We don't need all of the documents that Erin has put together on the website. It would be actually less transparent, I think, for parents, because they couldn't find anything. It would be overkill.
Yeah.
I like the idea definitely of a scope and sequence, what they're learning each. I don't know that you need to, I think you can get bogged down even in putting the standards. I kind of like the link to the standards rather than actually writing them in. And I'm thinking as a parent, or, my kids are grown, but always be a parent, right? As a parent, I would never honestly have ever thought to go to a website to find out what my kid was learning or if they needed help. I would have contacted the teacher. And, when I was teaching elementary school back in South Carolina, we sent home a Monday memo, what we were doing. And, so I think that's something that should be pointed out, that it's it's a partnership between teachers and parents. And, because there's been, the case has been made that, these parents don't know what's going on in the classroom. And so they need to go to a website, to the curriculum, to know what they're learning. And it's like, no, they actually need to email the teacher and ask, what are they learning? Or even for some suggestions of how they can help. So I think that piece needs to be emphasized. The curriculum gives you a good overview of what the children are going to learn at each grade level. And I think it's really nice to have a scope and sequence to know, okay, in the fall, they're going to be doing this. But as far as day-to-day type learning, that should be the communication between teacher and parent.
The other thing that's helpful, I used to send home a curriculum map at the beginning of the year. So it was broken down by month and subject areas with just a word or two about what was going to happen in each subject area. That, and that could be part of the website, just one little thing. But I think as Laura's saying, as a way to share it with the parent without having to go to the website. And then you could mention at the bottom for more detail, you can go to the website if you wanted. I see a lot of our parents now too are really websitey. They want a website for, at least I'm seeing that with my daughter and her generation. Did you go to the website? Did you see what the website said? And even some of our comments from our parents, they've been to the website, and they're, so I think for people that think that way, it's good to have something there for them to find.
Go back to the parent thing. A lot of times, parents are going to a teacher website,
Teacher's website, yeah.
right?
So I always
yeah.
posted my homework on my website, yeah.
Yeah. So, so they can also have the curriculum on the website, but I think, a lot of website parents are first going to those teacher websites and seeing what's there.
Mhm.
And then the other parts would probably be the next place they would go.
So what do we need to decide today?
Tracy, did you want to weigh in on any of that?
No, I agree with everything Ms. saying. I really like some of the ones that were more simplified and even with a little bit of pretty flair to them to make them attractive more than just the white and black. But less is more often, and especially I think with parents and in looking at these curriculums, it's a ton of information, and it's, if you don't understand, like you said, what the standards are, and as a parent before when I wasn't teaching, when Common Core came out, I was a stay-at-home parent, and I looked at that and it was Greek. So until you understand what that means, I think it's more helpful for those bullets and just the basics. I mean, if we wanted to go something like Mansfield, we could go with a briefer version maybe of the curriculum overviews at the top, but that might even be too much still.
So why don't I do this then? And I appreciate your feedback. So really, number one, because I'm just not sure about putting all of this up. Constantly going, okay, do we need to pull this one down and put a new one up? I just think it's too much. We have it here in this office, the staff will have it. What I heard was have the link to the standards, right? That's an important piece, so they can go right to Common Core. Really, that's a priority. Or what others? NGSS. And I was just going to say any of the standards. I was going to say PE, Laura.
Yeah.
Any of the standards. So just have a list of here's the standards for each of the content areas if they exist, and really what we're referencing. So as we write curriculum. Second thing is some sort of scope and sequence curriculum map. I think it's good to see whether it's trimester, quarter, just big picture. And if we could take that Tallinn look that has what we're working on in grade 2 and break it down by a little more detail. So this trimester we're working on this. I think that's helpful. And just try and make it, maybe we get, if I can find one that looks like that, and we won't stay in Connecticut, we'll just look wherever we can to find a good website to show what we're talking about. Because I feel like if we can show it, we have a better chance of having that, general approval. I'm not sure the board, you can say what, people are going to say. We want the website printed out for access to everybody. Well, anybody that wants to come into my office and have a document, go for it. You can come in and review it, but it's not going to mean anything to you, like Tracy said, if it's not, if you're not an educator. And we're not writing curriculum for parents. We're writing them for the professionals we are trusting to teach our kids. And so, you know, I think it's important for the three of you really to emphasize those things. And we'll start this conversation, I think, for the website. I haven't looked at the, you know, I have a draft agenda. I haven't talked to Michelle yet, but you know, it depends on how much work we'll have to do at this board meeting. But I think it's important to start getting that message out there as soon as possible. Like, every detail is not going to be put out on the you know, on the website. Brenda is printing everything that's been approved. So as Aaron sends you sets and they come back and they're approved, the first set that was approved has already been printed and it's sitting in a binder. It's just going to collect dust in my office. But if somebody wants to see it, they can come and see it. And there's a process for that. If they want more information, they can contact their child's teacher. If they want more information, they can go to the standards. If they want more information, they can go to a curriculum, you know, trifold. Those are really popular right now. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so I will bring that back. And Aaron, I will dig and see if I can share anything with you. And if you find anything better, let me know. But day-to-day lessons, no thanks.
Not necessary.
It's over the top. And to ask our staff to do that, I'm just not sure that's reasonable. Tracy, you're
Tracy, you're
muted.
muted.
Sorry. Lots of
Mhm.
interruptions with noise outside the hallway. It would be probably a waste too. If it was even looked at by one person. I mean, it was brought up at a meeting, well, parents should be able to go and look if their kid was out for extended time. Like we said, go to the teacher.
I don't
It's
think
not
people knew,
even-
Tracy, that our curriculum was already on the website. What's there is no one looks at it. I can look at the clicks.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, you know, it'd be, I bet the report card I would bet the report card page is more accessed, but even that's not accessed. So, all right. Well, thank you for your feedback on that. I appreciate it. Aaron and Kristen, you're in the final ELA push.
Woo!
You got a few months for a couple of big things, and we appreciate your work. So thanks for that.
Great job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Unless there's
Thank you.
anything else, we can adjourn. You good?
Good to
All
see
right.
you.
Thanks,
6:14
everybody.
Oh,
6:14.
one thing, Phil. So Tuesday is Tuesday the ed specs meeting,
Yes.
just because I have you here. So I won't be able to make that. Just I have a funeral in Ohio this weekend. So
It's going to be the first one, and you're not the only one. So
okay. All right.
Yep.
Just wanted to let you know because I didn't know if I would remember to email.
no problem.
Mhm.
No problem. I'll make a note now. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks all. Have a
Okay,
good night.
thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks for all your hard work, Aaron and
Thanks.
Kristen.
Thank you.
You
Very
guys
much.
too.